And now it's time for Hot Pop, where we're going to do conversation about all the hot headlines in the Housewives franchise right now.
I love it. Let's go. Let's get right into it.
Okay.
So exciting.
So the first Hot Pop topic, Noella Bergener claims she's squatting in her mansion amid this divorce with Sweet James.
Well, yeah, she only has access, allegedly, to a credit card that's attached to her Instacart and her Amazon. So she does not have, allegedly, any money to pay for that rent. And it wasn't a $10,000 a month lease. It's a 10,000 square foot home. So it's probably $20,000 or $30,000 a month. So it's a lot. And in looking into this particular story, Sweet James says, well, she knew full well that we were only leasing this house while she was filming for the OC, which ended November 2021. So after it ended, we were never going to be in it anyway. So she's just staying there nonetheless, because I guess she feels she doesn't have anywhere else to go. What do you think?
Well, I find it odd that if you are truly leasing this home, and we are now in January of 2022. Filming ended in November of 2021. So if it was leased through November, that means the rent wouldn't have been paid for December and right now into January. I would just think any landlord, why would they be okay with that?
They wouldn't.
And it just doesn't seem to be a bit of a problem. And, I guess she went and said, yeah. And I'm thinking, well, but like, when can they start eviction? Because that's coming. I mean, what is it, 3 months you're behind? They can start eviction on you?
I think so. I'm not sure what the COVID situation is. And California is probably pretty heavily regulated around that. But I don't know.
Probably. But that's crazy. And I think at this point, her mother came to visit. I don't know if I would. I mean, I don't think you need right now that big of a home, because, it's just you and your son.
Here again in this story, we have Noella saying that he's not paying anything, that he's abandoned his child, that his child is autistic and needs therapy, and he's not paying anything. And then, like, in the literal next sentence, of course I'm paraphrasing, but she says, and I've sent the invoices for therapy, for his therapy and for his needs, and sometimes he pays late. So I'm like, well, so he is paying. Is he paying, or is it everything coming out of her, two sides of her mouth? And I mean, I to me, if this were me, I would not squat, because I think there's something that's immoral about doing so. That's a person's property. They've got to pay the mortgage on that. And you can scale down your lifestyle and get a townhouse or an apartment for you and your two children, and that's okay. I know that she's got an income from the Real Housewives of OC, but I think first year it's pretty low. I think for Gina, she got maybe $50,000 that first year. Second year is like $75,000 or $100,000. It isn't until you're there for like 5 years that you're getting some of those bigger doll hairs. So she's not making a ton, but she's making something. And she also says that they reached a settlement agreement in September. So they were mediating. It's also convoluted. They were mediating. They reached a settlement agreement, and he has yet to sign that mediation agreement and give her the money, which is supposed to be at about $2 million, which, if you ask me, Brian, is pretty good for 1 year of marriage. 2 million doll hairs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, for 1 year. And the thing is, why hasn't he signed it? What is the holdup? What is the holdout? What is really going on?
I don't know.
It's just so strange to me, this whole situation. And again, you say she talks out of both sides of her mouth. I mean, everything is just a hashtag contradiction. And I don't get it. And the more information we get, the more contradictions come up, the more questions that come out. And it's crazy.
It is.
So crazy.
And I'm exhausted. And it's too much, Noella. It's too much. I'm over it.
Yeah.
Next Hot Pop.
Yeah. All right, let's just not even talk about Noella anymore. Let's go into something else.
Yeah.
Let's talk about...
Well, wait. I will say, though, it doesn't surprise or shock me that she is a friend of Bronwyn, because that's Bronwyn all day long, just releasing stories, trying to be pictures taken by the paparazzi, always trying to invent a storyline, and it was so thirsty with Bronwyn, and so it doesn't surprise me that Noella is kind of following that same blueprint. So I'll just say that.
And maybe Bronwyn coached her and said, these are the things you need to do to be popular, to be on the show. But I just feel like it's not working because, I'm starting not to care.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But we'll move on. We'll go back a little bit because Kelly Dodd recently has said that Shannon Beador is afraid of Heather Dubrow and has to kiss her ass.
And this is what I was saying. That somebody came out and called it. And I agree. I mean, Kelly Dodd is problematic as hey-all. She's problematic as hey-all. But she's also somebody who speaks her truth, and she's not ashamed to do that. And there's something that I respect about that. She's also probably the only person who would be able to go toe-to-toe and not give any F's about the ramifications in dealing with Heather, which is why I think, and there's rumors that Heather would not return unless Kelly Dodd was fired. And so Kelly Dodd actually thinks that Heather Dodd is the reason she was fired. And I think she's not in reality there, because she was saying all kinds of things on social media about the RHOM and about politics and all that stuff. So I think that probably had more to do with why she was let go, but maybe Heather had something to do with it.
I think it was both. I think it was certainly a lot of the things that she was saying, and it was just horrifying, the things that she was saying. And I think a chunk of it was they really wanted to get Heather Dubrow back, and that was their way to do it,
I guess.
And, Shannon made these comments on... Shannon. Let's try this again. Kelly made these comments on her husband's podcast, Rick and Kelly Unmasked. She said, and I want to quote this because this is just typical Kelly, because Shannon's afraid of her, poor Shannon, she doesn't have her real friends to back her up, so she has to kiss her ass. It's bullshit. You're going to get mad at somebody for telling the truth. You can just see the evil. She's a little evil girl here, that Heather Dubrow. And that's the end of the quote. Although she did say that Noella was the only one that was interesting to her. But I just think Kelly still goes on and on about the Housewives. She's bitter that she was let go. She wants to be back on the show. And she'll say these things. But I don't disagree. It doesn't seem like there is anyone in Shannon's life that will back her up. So she's trying so hard to remain Heather's friend. And again, Heather now seems to be the big draw on the show. It's Heather, Heather, Heather. So affix yourself to that person, and maybe you'll get to stay on the show.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Terrible. But we'll see what happens with the whole kissy-assy thing. So next up, there was a rumor that Kyle Richards is jealous that her sister Kathy Hilton is such a breakout success on the Housewives of Beverly Hills. I have thoughts, but what are your thoughts?
I don't believe it at all. Because if you watched last season, which we both did, Kyle seemed so happy and charmed by reconnecting with Kathy at this level, and that their relationship is finally correcting and they're getting back together. She seems so happy to be with her sister, and I don't believe it. I guess that just doesn't seem real to me. What do you think?
I don't think it's real at all. There's a side topic to that all of the Housewives are a little ticked off that Kathy got a huge pay raise to come back as a friend of the show, not an actual cast member.
Do we know how much she got? Do we know what that number is?
I don't know. I don't know. But here's the thing. They base that on what you contribute to the show. And let's face it, everybody was talking about Kathy Hilton. I mean, Erica Jane, yes, and all her things that were going on. But Kathy was, first of all, a breath of fresh air on that show. I mean, who is Hunky Dory will be going on forever, and I still laugh about Hunky Dory. I'm just saying.
I don't.
But I feel like
her.
You don't like Kathy Hilton? I don't know if I like her or dislike her. I enjoyed her on the show. I think most of my enjoyment was how she reconnected with Kyle, and that was so important. I love Kyle. Kyle Richards is my absolute favorite of all the Housewives.
Me too.
And that's why I don't believe that she's jealous. And you even saw the way she was loving the relationships that Kathy was starting to form with the other girls. This is someone, Kyle, who is truly happy to have her sister back in her life and in a very prominent role in her life, and was so happy to share her work, this part of her work, with her. I don't think I don't think there's a mean bone in Kyle's body. I mean, yeah, she can maybe be a little bitchy sometimes, like they all can, but I think she's truly in gratitude that her sister is on this part of the journey with her. But so why don't you like Kathy Hilton?
I think that, well, after hearing what Paris had to say about being sent away to a camp because she was misbehaving, and how her experiences while she was gone, which were very traumatizing and abusive. And seeing Kathy in, like, even Paris in Love, just how she was in different, under different perspectives and filters and on different programs. She doesn't seem to be showing up on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills as she truly is. It kind of feels like an act to me that she's playing this doddering, older, very simple, doesn't know how to do things role. It just does. I feel like she's way smarter than all of that. I think she's probably a pretty calculating person. I think she's conscious and aware of how she's presenting to the world. I mean, everybody in her family, is famous pretty much. And so I just don't buy it with her. I don't buy it with her. So I've always just got one eye on her. There's something that feels a bit disingenuous. It's not that I don't like her as a human. It's just like, I don't feel like what we saw last year is actually authentic. You cannot be, that cannot be all there is to you, ma'am. That's what I feel. Okay. That's what I feel. I'm standing by it. That's my truth, Brian.
You have shattered my
these are just thoughts.
Glass house of Kathy Hilton, only because I'm just now starting to catch up on some of Paris's issues and things like that. I did not watch Paris's show. I've never really cared that much about Paris Hilton to invest in a show that she's done, so I don't know about a lot of that. But I just thought, if this really is Kathy, like, wow, how hilarious, and I was tickled by the way that she was. And now if Hunky Dory wasn't real,
well, I think it's a version of her. I think that's part of who she is, but it's not like the total package of who she is. Like, I am much more interested in seeing who she actually is. And with regard to the money, there was some other kind of whispers, rumors, echoes, that she's actually getting paid as much or more than full-time cast members to be a friend of, which is obviously, it's not a demotion, but it's a step down from what they're doing. So she might be getting more than Crystal. She might be getting more than Dorito. I don't know. And so if I was a full-time castmate, I'd be like, that's a little unfair.
Yeah, I would be a little upset too. Mm-hmm. And I think that as much as she was featured, she could have been a cast member.
Sure.
I mean, we were in her home a lot. We saw her pretty much at every function. I think they could have found it to make her even a supporting cast member, which is maybe, a step up from a friend of the show. Mm-hmm. I think they should have cast members, a couple supporting, and maybe a friend or two. And I kind of feel like if I were to put it in that sort of tier, she felt like a supporting player this past season versus just a friend of the show.
I'm bored by her.
Friend of the show comes to a couple functions,
She's
whatever.
Boring.
I don't know.
She's boring.
Okay. Well,
I say that with
that's hot pop for you today.
With all the love of Christ in my heart. She's boring.
And our last hot pop topic, Real Housewives of Miami. Alexia Echevarria's son is arrested for domestic violence against his girlfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, God, go back to when they were on the show before. I remember him and her husband. They were going to fight. Like, he was always just mean and had outbursts and was a violent type of person. Yes. So it doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me either. I don't know if you watched last week's episode of Real Housewives of Miami, since we are not going to be covering it on the podcast, but I did. And I saw the argument between Alexia? Okay. I saw the argument between Alexia's soon-to-be husband, I guess they're married now, and her son. And you should watch just for that, because he told it exactly how it is. He told Alexia she's enabling him. He told her son, you're a loser. How could you drug her son who's developmentally disabled and has some issues, and basically called him on the carpet and was very forceful about it. And I was cheering because I don't know what Alexia's problem is. She's always covering for her son and always making excuses. And I think in 2012, he assaulted a homeless person. He beat him up, kicked him in the crotch, I think, or something like that. And he was arrested for that or charged with that. I don't know the difference. Sorry about that. I think within a year or two, he was arrested again for possession of marijuana, which I don't really think is that big of a deal. And he might have had something else. I'm not sure. But now he has been arrested for this. And I think his bail was $1,500. And at the time that it was reported, he was still in jail. So I'm not sure if Alexia is leaving him there for a little while. I'm not sure if Todd, her new husband, is leaving him there for... I just know that Todd seems over this dude. And there's something about the way he looks, the way he talks. Like, I'm like, are you a sociopath, dude? Like, there's something missing.
It feels that way. It does feel that way. I didn't watch the whole episode. I literally tuned in for that because the rest of it I just was like blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But that was a powerhouse, not even a confrontation, and I feel that he had every right to call him out. I mean, the only thing I don't know is he living in the house with them?
No, I think, at the time of the incident, the domestic violence incident, he has his own apartment. So it happened in his apartment. Okay. So I'm not sure. Okay. I don't think so.
Okay, because he must have just been over, obviously, visiting. But, I mean, how can you allow your child to behave like this? Now, I understand he is a grown adult. He can make his own decisions and his behavior is his. But to continually enable... Yes. A child to behave this way when he has a pattern of this behavior. It's not a one-off rando incident. And he gives off very creepy sociopath vibes. And she just seems okay with it. And that makes me not okay with her.
She just seems to be protecting him.
And yes, protect your children, sure, when they need protecting. But does a child need protection when they are assaulting other people?
No, they need accountability. They need you to tell them the truth. They need therapy. And maybe she's done some of this behind the scenes. But what struck me as really strange in that scene in particular was when she said, well, what are you doing for him? And he's like, that's not my son. And he wasn't saying it to be cruel. He's like, that's not my primary responsibility. You are the mother. This is your responsibility. And she just kept asking him, like, well, what are you doing? Why can't you do something? And it was really weird. I'm like, Alexia, your son is out here committing crimes and treating people very badly. And the more you cover for your son, the worse it's going to get. It was very disturbing. And this is a disturbing event.
Yeah, and it's a disturbing subject anyway, because there are a lot of situations. I mean, you see situations like this in the news and the media a lot. And I just, when does helping become coddling, become covering to these horrific behaviors? It's sad. It's so sad.
It's sad.
And that you feel bad for him on one level because he needs help. Right. Obviously, he needs help. And if he truly is a sociopath, I mean, this is then just the tip of the iceberg. Because, sociopaths have very criminal and crazy and cuckoo behavior. And, I'm no doctor, but I believe at minimum, counseling is needed.
Oh, for
at minimum. Whether
sure.
Deep psychotherapy, medication, I don't know about all that. But he needs something because this young man has no focus other than these egregious acts that he's perpetrating on people.
I don't know. I don't know
horrifying.
If he works. I think he's something with real estate. I'm not sure. But his father was a drug kingpin and has been in and out of prison himself. And so he's probably got his own trauma. And of course, we're saying sociopath like we know. We don't know. And this is all alleged. We're just looking at his energy, though, and the way he talks to his mother. It just seems like he's detached a little bit from reality. And it's kind of scary. Yeah. It's kind of scary.
His energy is very dark.
And did you read what he actually did? And we won't go into it because it was a lot, but it was pretty cruel. So I don't know.
It was cruel. It was cruel. You listen. You guys can look it up for yourselves and have your own thoughts and opinions. I don't think we want to give too much more energy to it, but it's very uncomfortable.
It is. But Alexia, you do better. Do better with your children.
Yeah, please do better.